Welcome to Bronze and Modern Gods. I am John, and I'm here with Richard. Hey, Richard.
Hey, John. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. Things are happening. Just a crazy week again in the comic collecting community. I mean, just so much to go over. But we should let you know first, if you are not following us on Instagram or Facebook or Snippety Snappity Chat or WhatsApp or whatever the heck you want.
MySpace,
Friendster. Follow us at Bronze and Modern Gods. It's pretty easy. You can also visit bronzeandmoderngods.com to catch up on old episodes, to shoot us an email, or to follow us on any of the social media. If you are watching us on YouTube, which if you are, hi, how you doing? Make sure you hit like and subscribe. We don't tell you that for our health. It helps us. It helps you. It helps everyone. It's a holistic thing. And if you are not following us, then just stop watching us right now. We hate you. No,
you're so subtle, John.
I know. Why I'm here. No, we love people. We are here today because we're a little excited. I'm a little excited. I've got a caffeine buzz going on. We've got so much to cover this week. We're going to talk about conventions, our experience at our favorite conventions. You know, in this time of COVID, it's not happening right now. There are no shows happening. They're starting to ramp up again, as you'll see later on. So we're going to go walk down memory lane a little bit, talk about that, and talk about what we think the future might hold, especially this summer. And then we've got a little teaser here for some of our underrated books of the week, and a teaser on Richard's end for the artist of the week. So why don't we start the way we always do, by showing off our nerd shirts. You first, buddy.
Yeah, I got a shirt. I really love this shirt. It's a Amazing Spider-Man 100.
It is.
The cover. It is hard to get all into the frame, but it is a gorgeous shirt.
I like the two-tone, though, all red.
Yeah.
Black. Where'd you get that?
Got it at superherostuff.com. I've been buying all my shirts there. Great place. Yeah. I bought several shirts for them. Come quickly. Great quality. Love it.
Oh, that's awesome. So my shirt this week is kind of a teaser, some foreshadowing of what's happening later in this episode. And it's my man Herc, drawn by Ed McGuinness. I love this shirt. It's a custom, so good luck trying to find it. But I love that image, and we'll talk a little bit more about Herc later on this episode. But let's start off, as we always do, with the hot book of the week, and we've got a modern book this week that's taking the reins, and it is The Edge of Spider-Verse #2. So why is this book suddenly so hot, Richard?
Well, Edge of Spider-Verse #2 is the first appearance of Spider-Gwen, Gwen Stacy as Spider-Gwen. She's obviously someone that's tied to another character that saw a huge spike last week, who is Miles Morales as Spider-Man. So this book has her first appearance and has trended in the past at having a higher value than the Miles Morales book.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Tables have turned. The book has gone now, though. It was going for around $550 a couple of weeks ago. I know, because I happened to buy one at the time. And now the latest sale on that book, the highest sale on the book, is $800. So it's seeing a rise in value, I think, because of the Miles Morales effect. And that's going across the entire board of, this is one of those books that has a huge amount of reprints, 5 different reprints, and a number of variants. So there are a number of ways that you can come across this book if you want to collect it. The first print is obviously the most desirable, one of the most desirable, because there's a variant print that's more desirable. It's a good book, and all of the subsequent reprints of the book have the same artwork as the original book. The only difference is at the very bottom of the book. This is something Marvel did in the period. They changed the color of the bottom, I don't know, 10%, 15% of the book to be a different color. It's white in the first print, blue on the second print, and it changes color. And that's one way you can quickly tell whether the book is a first print or second print, a fourth print, or fifth print.
But the third print has a different cover, though, right? It has
right.
That.
And they did a design cover for the third print, where you see Spider-Gwen in different angles and a kind of a blueprint type of background, and it's got green as the theme color to it. And this is the only book out of the reprints that has a different color, a cover from the other books in the sequence. And because of that, it's seeing spikes in its value. You're seeing values for this book around $225, for example, for a CGC 9.8. And I think that value is going to continue to go up. And, as this book goes up, the first print goes up, the value of this third print will go up.
Help me out as a Bronze Age kid, and as someone who loves Silver Age and even some Golden Age stuff. I'm buying Patsy Walker annuals, you know.
No, you are.
All right. So, Spider-Gwen. Who? What? Gwen Stacy's alive? She's got spider powers? What the? Who the what?
Yeah, Marvel took has taken kind of a page from DC's book when it comes to multiverses, splitting the Marvel universe into several different parallel universes. And in one of those parallel universes, Gwen Stacy, instead of dying as she did in the normal Marvel universe, she actually ends up living and gaining powers. And it seems, and if you've watched the Spider-Verse movie, you may have some insight into this. There are different spider people in this, and one for each different spider universe. And all of them have a backstory that reads similar to Peter Parker's backstory, but different in some way. There's always some tragedy involved with them rising to the challenge of being a superhero. And Gwen Stacy is one of those characters in one of those multiverses, as is Miles Morales.
It's kind of a callback to Mark Gruenwald's Worlds of What If.
Yeah, that's I never equated to that, but yeah, it's really interesting because it gives this multiverse gives Marvel the opportunity to go all kinds of different directions with all kinds of new heroes that can spring up. For example, Silk, who is a Korean American who gets bit by the same spider as Peter Parker and has spider powers and is rumored to be a character in a movie that's upcoming in the Sony Spider-Verse. There's all kinds of opportunities and frees them up to create new stories. And the Gwen Stacy story and Spider-Gwen has really hit home, and I think it was driven home by the movie, to be honest with you.
So that's where like Spider-Man Noir comes from, all these things, so we're probably preaching to the converted here, but as an old fart myself, I kind of like, okay, let's break this down a little bit. So thank you for entertaining Nana's question. All right.
The value of this book, I think, is going to continue to rise at about the same pace as we'll see Miles Morales rise. Miles Morales, Ultimate Fallout 4 is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about his first appearance. I think has plateaued and is now coming on the back end of the bubble. It's going to continue to go down, and it's going to. I think it's going to finally reach its real selling point around 750, 800, around that range. We'll see Spider-Gwen or Edge of the Spider-Verse #2. We'll see it also rise. He'll hit its plateau and then dip down and then settle to a price. I think someplace commensurate with what Ultimate Fallout 4 is going to be. Maybe a little less, just because she doesn't have a video game after her. But we'll see. I think we're going to continue to see over time. There's solid value in this book because of the movies that are coming, and I think Sony and Marvel are committing to this character. So we'll see more comic books and we'll see more movies related to her.
So if you are looking for this book and you want, like, you're an uber collector, you love yourself some Spider-Gwen, what is the one version besides the obvious first print? If you're going to get any of the variants, what would you shoot for?
Well, there's two. If I was money unlimited, I would get the land version, which is one of the variant covers. It is a really nice cover. It is the rarest of the different variants, and it's going for about $2,500 for a 9.8.
Wow.
Yeah, it's always been up there, and I think it's rising a bit. But if I was on the other end of the spectrum and I'm looking to collect and possibly speculate something more reasonable, I would go after the third print. I think the third
Hmm.
print is still undervalued, maybe undervalued is not the right word. I think there's still room to grow in the value of the third print. So if you buy it today for 200, 250, you'll see, in my opinion, a rise in value over time. It's never going to be as valuable as the first print, but like I said, I think there's still room there for that book to reach its potential.
It's interesting you say that because I actually was able to snag a third print during one of the Remedy Tour live sales that Ali and various other retailers have been having, and it came in the mail this week, and I'm like, oh, so that's that Spider-Gwen I've read so much about, and I'm kind of glad I got it because we don't have shows anymore. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what our topic is about this week is comic book conventions, our favorite ones. Looking forward to getting back out there and what we think the summer is going to be like. So let me start off the conversation, if I may, by giving you a little experience that I had last week. I got up early on Saturday morning because they announced that the Frank and Sons collectibles show, which is, I believe it's a former Walmart that has been converted to just hold as many dealers for collectibles as possible. So it's kind of like this giant Uber collectors flea market. They have everything from sports collectibles to card collecting, statue figurines, things like that, but lots and lots of comic books. And so we've been out there a few times since they moved to their new location before COVID-19 hit. And they announced last week they were reopening. So we thought, you know what? Let's get in the car Saturday morning. They opened at 9 o'clock. We left the house here in Long Beach about 10, took us about 45 minutes to get here. And this is what we saw. So I thought, all right, things are reopening. Let's check out Frank and Sons, the big collectible show in Southern California. So here we are. I have to be honest, I'm kind of about it. I feel a little guilty breaking our self-imposed quarantine after so many weeks. But we thought, let's come take a look. And boy, this is what we found. So there is the entrance, and the line wraps around this entire building all the way back through here, and then loops around again and around, and that's the end of the line. So, that's kind of what we saw. People are not worried about heading back in there. You saw the line. It was 2 hours after they had opened. That line was huge. I don't know if we showed you the true scale of it. It went all the way around the building, all the way behind the building, and wrapped back around and came back towards the front of the building. And that was just to get in. So I'm not passing any judgment here. Let me be very clear. If people are comfortable, it is a calculated risk. I have to give credit to Frank and Sons. They're very clear on their website about the social distancing, about wearing masks, about sanitation. They have hand sanitizers everywhere. They are doing the right thing. It was a little too much for me personally this early on. But it just kind of, it freaked me out, but it gave me hope. Does that make any sense?
It's weird. I keep waiting for the comic book industry to be suffering from the lack of new books, the fight between DC and Diamond. But all I see are just a bullish market when it comes to comic books. It's really, really impressive, and the fact that people are willing to wait in that line
In the heat, it was hot too.
In California sun is just a testament to the power and strength of this hobby. Me personally, I would have done the same thing that you did. I would not be waiting in that line.
Yeah. and I'm sorry, Richard, but I just want to be clear so nobody like comes at me. I'm not saying Frank and Son did anything wrong. They're allowed to be open. They want to be open. I wanted to go, frankly. No pun intended. And I just didn't want to wait in that line
Right.
around that crowd of people.
Frankly, no matter what the condition, my patience in waiting those lines is no longer there, mainly because there's so many other options nowadays.
Exactly.
With Instagram and the sales that we've seen on Instagram, and other markets like Facebook has its marketplace, or eBay, of course, is an alternative. There's so many other places that people are selling books. But yeah, we're talking about conventions and their current state. One of the questions I have is the days of large conventions like that in the past, and where we don't need to converge in such a large group to be able to share and enjoy this hobby.
Well, you say that, but I loved it. I mean, I still love it. And just last January, and it's here in my notes to talk about, you flew out here for a big one that we went to together, which was the California Comic Con, which is by Terry from Terry's Comics. One that I look forward to every year. It used to be all the way out in Yorba Linda, and they moved it this year to Costa Mesa, which I was like, yeah, 20 minutes away. So that was great. And, as much as I love me some Instagram live sales, I like that, but I'm looking forward to getting back out to a show and walking up to the Golden Age Guru's booth,
But you know what? That was a great show. I met so many. It's funny how many people I met there that I converse with now, and other, for example, Gene from Shortboxed, the app that everyone should check out if you're looking at buying and selling comic books. But I met him there personally. Like you mentioned, the Golden Age Guru, we met him while we were out there. That show, I don't consider it a big show like the Frank show or like SDCC. Those shows are kind of mega shows. They are more about just comics. SDC is such a large conference. The conference for the California Comic Con was very focused in its vendors. They were all comic book vendors. The audience that was there were all comic book people. There weren't people looking for Funkos or miniatures. Everything was very specific, and I think that kind of convention is potentially the future, where we have a smaller audience, but that our audience is more discerning, and the vendors that are serving them are more specific. So I see that being something that I agree is a great thing. I'm just not sure that things like SDCC are going to be able to continue in the kind of climate that we have now.
Yeah, well, I think if things get a little better in terms of managing the spread of this thing, any better treatment, any kind of vaccine that may be developed in the next year or so, I think San Diego Comic-Con is always going to be San Diego Comic-Con. But to your point, it's everything. It's more about Hall H and what movies premiering. It's more about the video games. DC's got a spectacularly huge booth, but then Marvel basically sets up a stage and just trots out creators. It's, and then you go down and you walk around, and you see Torpedo Comics there and some cool people like Dale Roberts and some dealers like that. But the overhead is so high that I don't know unless they're going to get some sort of discount going forward, it's going to be tenable much longer.
Right.
But I love small local shows. There's not enough of them in Southern California. There's one that was happening in downtown LA at the Shrine every month that I used to like. In Ohio, there was Mid Ohio Con. Oh, I used to love Mid Ohio Con. Do they still have that in Mansfield?
Yeah, it got canceled this year. Everything. NeoCon, which was here in Ohio too, which is a big show, it got canceled.
But I love a good local show. I mean, when you and I were coming up, we would have shows at the local VFW. Remember those? And I want to see those make kind of a comeback. I wonder,
I would too. I think those are great, and I don't want people to misunderstand me. I don't. It's not that I don't like SDC. See, I actually had tickets to go this year. I was going to fly out, meet John, and we were going to do SDCC. We were going to do it for the podcast. We were going to kind of walk around and give our impressions.
We
And
were
I
all
was excited. Yeah, I had for five years. I have been trying to get tickets to SDCC. Finally managed to get tickets this year. Was pumped, and then all this happened, and the opportunity has been moved back to next year in terms of the tickets. So. Uh, I also think those shows have a place. I
Mhm.
just don't know if, as a comic book collector and a comic book buyer, if those are going to be the kind of venues that I'm going to be buying my books at.
I will say, if you have never gone to San Diego Comic-Con, it's like Vegas. You got to go at least once. I mean, you may love it, you may hate it, but then you can tell everybody you've done it, and you can't pass judgment on it until you do it. So if you want to get in the badge lottery, definitely try. Go for it. This is the first year since 1990 that I will not be going, and the only reason is because it's canceled.
Yeah, it's
I've
like Route 66. If you're a car guy, you got to go. If you're a comic book guy, you got to go to San Diego Comic-Con.
I'm just thinking back when we were talking about this topic earlier this week. The one show that really sticks out in my mind that I have really fond memories of, and it was a one-time thing, was when Cleveland was celebrating the 50th anniversary of Superman. And they had this big Superman convention, this 50th anniversary Superman convention in downtown Cleveland. And I was a volunteer along with our friend Forrest, who we volunteered, and Neil Levitt, who God rest his soul, he owned the comic shop that I managed, and we were volunteers, so we kind of got to go behind the scenes and help set up and help. I remember walking pros around and getting them to their tables, like Kurt Swan. I have a Kurt Swan sketch that I got at that show that of Superman that I treasure. I'll have to show it. And it was just a great show. Now, of course, the company that put it on went bankrupt right after, but I love that show. That was a great memory for me.
I remember the old shows that we used to go to. I remember my first resurgence of interest is when you flew out here, and we went to a convention here close to me, and it was a very specific comic book convention, kind of like the California Comic-Con, and it was only comic book vendors. And yeah, I kind of got a taste again of comic collecting and the thrill of the hunt and the chase. And you were pulling out books, then you were telling me, what kind of deals that you were getting out of it, and that of course just perked my ears. So that when I later on came across my old comic convention collection and decided to get back into the groove, those are the kind of experiences that I was looking for.
I that's what I love. IG live sales are one thing. The thrill of the hunt and finding someone that has a book that you've been looking for, and it's priced right. You kind of swoop in and do it.
We
And
go into that one comic book shop and finding 8 Ultimate Fallout 4 second prints, followed by 8 more of the other second prints, all in a row, all that have been sitting there since 2011, just waiting for me to find them. And that's that kind of thrill that it's hard to replicate when you're doing a live sale.
California Comic-Con in January, I went to a dealer who had a Rawhide Kid 23, which is the famous monster issue with the totem, and sells in multiples of guide in higher grades. And he was like, "What do you want for it? Or what do you want to give me for it?" And I'm like, "How about this much?" And he's like, "Okay." And I'm like, I kind of like trotted away because I felt like I was stealing something, but I wasn't. I gave him money for it. So
You can't beat that kind of sense. Yeah.
yeah, that's why it's one of the reasons I like shows, and the camaraderie and just the whole fun of it. So let's hope that something happens. I don't know what. I wish I had a happy ending or some sort of button to put on this, but that it's life.
In my opinion, these are businesses in that sense, and all businesses are struggling right now to establish a new norm. And at some point, they'll find that norm, and we'll be able to move forward from that point. And I don't think it's going to be exactly the experience we had in the past. of being huddled around long boxes, shoulder to shoulder, digging through things. But I think we'll still have that kind of experience in terms of being able to approach a vendor and look through his wares and haggle and all the things that are part of the hunting process.
And who knows, in a year and a half, 2 years, we can go back with a vaccine and I can go lick everyone's books the way I used to. I don't even know what that means. So I think it's time to move on to the artist spotlight this week. Talking about polarizing, that was a polarizing statement. Our artist spotlight this week is someone who is much more polarizing than I thought when I started looking online and doing a little research, and that is John Romita Jr. John Romita Jr., just like his dad, started off on some Marvel Universe stuff. He co-created The Prowler with his dad at the age of 13. I remember him from his early run on Iron Man with Bob Layton. That was really cool looking, and he was just, a pretty solid draftsman, much in the vein of his father. He drew very much like his father, which I loved. Then he moved over to Spider-Man. And Richard, what's your interaction? What's your experience with the art of John Romita Jr.?
You said he did Spider-Man. He did a run in X-Men, which I can remember. He worked with Chris Claremont in a really good run of the X-Men. Created one of my favorite characters, was Forge. So yeah, to me he's Spider-Man, but primarily an X-Men artist.
That X-Men run was interesting, the first one, because he started off really kind of imitating Paul Smith, who he replaced, and then he grew into his own. A lot of it had to do with the inkers, Bob Wycheck and Dan Green, frankly. But then he came back on the book in the 90s, and he kind of like imageized his style a little bit. The characters got bigger, blockier, more Kirby-like. So all of a sudden, this artist who, as the big Kirby acolyte that I am, this artist who I was kind of like, oh, he's good. Now all of a sudden I was like, wow, John Romita Jr.'s got this big blocky Kirby thing going on, and I'm into it. Meanwhile, it seems like the rest of fandom's like, what the hell happened to John Romita Jr.? I used to love his stuff.
Oh, he co-created the Hobgoblin, which is probably one of the more famous Spider-Man villains.
What did you think of the change in his art style? Did you change your mind about him at all, or
it was a little jarring for me. I liked his previous style better when he did that change, and like you said, he imagized his style. I wasn't necessarily a big fan. I was trailing off of books at that point anyway, and I don't know if that was the impetus was that change. Bill Sienkiewicz had some things to do with my deciding to leave as well.
Wow.
That is the story for another time.
You love your basics.
I do. But overall, he's always been a solid artist. You can't argue with his anatomy. You can't argue with the way he tells a story through his art. So he's always been one of those artists that I find is a solid performer, a solid work person, and will create something that I will enjoy. It may not be necessarily always exactly what I enjoy, but I will find enjoyment out of it.
Don't get me wrong. It's not like I think the guy can do no wrong. His run on Superman, I thought, oh, this will be good. And I was like, wow, what's going on here? Not a fan of that. But I do have to say, I loved his run on Spider-Man with J. Michael Straczynski, however you say his name.
You did it better than I would have.
The Babylon 5 guy.
I know. Yeah.
And now he's over at DC now. It's weird. I just have him so identified with Marvel that it's a mental block for me. Sorry.
Yeah, there's some artists like that you have a hard time. I still have a hard time with Jim Lee being at DC.
He's been published for how long?
I know, I know. You know, he's been everywhere. He is Jim Lee is the workhorse of the comic book industry.
He is. And speaking of workhorses, we're going to transition now into a Marvel Silver Age workhorse that is finally getting his due as we talk about the underrated books of the week. I'm going to start.
Okay, I want you to. I first before you proceed, I want everyone to know John is crowing at this because he he predicted this. He has been chasing this particular book and was so proud of actually chaining it. And now that it's becoming something of a critical acclaim, I think he wanted to have an opportunity to share his joy.
Rich has known me for 30 years. Rich knows I'm about two superheroes when it comes down to the nitty gritty: Captain America and my boy Hercules. Why do I like Captain America? Because he inspired me to join the army and serve my country. He is the good guy to beat all good guys. He believes in the goodness of America and humanity as a whole. He's always there with an inspirational speech. He's someone to look up to as a paragon of virtue. Why do I like Hercules? He's the exact opposite of everything I just said. He's a big drunkard, oafy, boorish guy, and he's hysterical. When he's written well, he is just the best. I like to say that Cap and Herc are the two sides of my coin in terms of my personality. I've got my thank you. Got my very responsible side, and I've got my big drunken boorish oafy side. And you know, I'm like Certs, two mints in one. So here's me dressed up as the guy at Comic-Con a few years ago. Here's me dressed up as the guy again a couple years later at Comic-Con. So I'm willing to make myself a fool walking around Comic-Con dressed as Herc because I love the characters so much. So I had a mission when we went to that California Comic-Con back in January, and that was, hey, I have this guy. I buy all the appearances. I love Champions. #1 is one of my favorite covers of all time. I love all the early Thor stuff, but you know what? I don't have it. I don't own a copy of Journey into Mystery Annual #1. I don't own a copy of Journey into Mystery 124, which is the first full Hercules cover, kind of like where he's by himself. So I told Richard, I was like, I'm on the hunt for a Journey into Mystery Annual #1 at the show. And we walked around, and it was near the end of the show, right?
Right.
I wish I could remember the dealer's name because I really want to give him a plug, but I completely blanked on it. I'm so sorry. But I saw a raw copy up on a dealer's shelf, and it looked really good. And I thought, you know what? Can I take a look at that, mister? And he brought it over, and I kind of ballparked it at a 7.5, 8.0. He thought, the dealer, frankly, had thought it was higher. And I was like, not with this weird jagged line rip thing happening on the top of the cover. They're not going to make it any higher than an 8.0, even if it is a production defect, which I think it was. And I bought it, a little haggling, but I bought it. And I bought it for what I thought was a really kind of outrageous price at the time. Do you remember what I paid for it, Richard?
No, I don't.
I paid $800 for that book. And I thought, I'm kind of getting gouged here, but it's the nicest copy I've seen, period. Because I had a 4.5 and I sold it because it was just, I don't want a 4.5 in my house. And,
maybe for the servants' quarters, but not for the main house.
I'll take an FF1 or a Hulk 1 and a 4.5. Anything else is not going to stay here. And so that was really snobby. And so I got this book, and they had CGC drop-off at the show. I looked at it up and down. I thought, you know what? It doesn't need a press. It doesn't need to be cleaned. It was really, I think it had already been pressed, frankly, and cleaned. So I dropped it off at the show, and a few weeks later, this baby arrived at the house. Oh, she's so pretty. She's an 8.0. And
I thought that was ballsy when you did that. When you picked it up from the dealer, walked over to the CGC drop-off, and handed it to the guy with basically not ever touching it, and went
fortune favors the bold.
Yes, it does.
And this one I got the show as well. and I got a pretty good deal. I talked the dealer down a bit. I kind of ballparked it. It's going to be a 7.5. I think I'll be happy if it's a 7.5. I took it home, gave it some tender loving care, you know, uh, and she came back an 8.5. Hey,
Nice.
I love this cover because it's like Thor. Oh yeah, there he is. But Hercules is in this book, people. So in between that time, this book is exploded. A Journey into Mystery Annual 1. There's movie speculation that the guy is going to be in either the She-Hulk TV series, which would make sense because they have a romantic relationship in the comics, or he's going to be in Thor: Love and Thunder, which makes even more sense. So people are speculating. You like that? Yeah. So
Yeah.
people are speculating big time on my boy Herc. So if you have not gotten Journey into Mystery Annual #1 now, here's my advice. Don't buy a slab. What? Huh? There are lots of raw copies out there. And it's one of those square bound annuals from the mid 60s that we talked about last week with some other square bound annuals. They're easy to clean. If you know how to press a square bound, you can really give some CPR and some new life to a book. That white cover, though, it does pick up everything. This has been an undervalued book for decades. It's one of those books that nobody gave a crap about, so it's kind of bopped around quite a bit. But you could get a nice 3.0, 4.0, 5.0 raw copy, still fairly affordable, and do a little work on it and see what you can do and try to get it slabbed and get a 6 out of it. Go get your Hercs. And I, while we're talking about Herc, I want to show off some of my original Hercules art that I'm collecting. This is a beautiful piece that I commissioned at the Long Beach Comic Con from Scott Collins, who really went to town on putting some Kirby-esque elements in it. And speaking of Kirby-esque elements, at the California Comic Con in January as well, Eric Larson did this piece for me where he channeled Kirby to the point where the fist is popping out and giving you a big shiner. So these are just beautiful pieces. I'm really happy with them. I've got more coming, more commissions coming, and the Hercules wall will be filled soon. So what's your book this week, Richard?
I'm going to talk about a more modern book, and actually kind of a pair of modern books. Marvel came out with a title called Marvel Point One. It's one of the most confusing titles ever because they have a Marvel Point One that came out in 2012, and then a Marvel Now Point One. And there's first appearances of two characters that I think have some serious legs in the future of the MCU. The one Marvel Point One is the first appearance of Sam Alexander as Nova, and the Marvel Now Point One is the first appearance of Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel. Those two characters, I think, are going to be something that not in the short term going to be a part of the MCU maybe, but in the long term, I think they are good solid bets of a updated youthful MCU. We're going to get rid of some of these older characters and go towards a younger base so that you have that 10-year span that you can mature with those characters. Think of Harry Potter. Harry Potter started off young and they got older over time. You want to have these younger characters. So these two books are still, I mean, you can get the Sam Alexander first appearance for still $10 if you buy it raw. The Kamala Khan book is a little bit more expensive. It's going to cost you about $50 raw. It fluctuates a bit. But people who want Kamala Khan's first appearance are going to want to look at that book. There's a Captain Marvel 17, the second print. Is a very popular book for Ms. Marvel. It's her on the cover with long, big fists and stretched arms. That book is really expensive. It's going for like $800 raw. If you want something that is easier just to stomach, that Marvel Point One is the better book. But just like I talked about last week, we talked about the Champions, the new Champion series, not the original Champions that you're talking about with Herc. There's Miles Morales, Spider-Gwen, Silk. Amadeus Cho is the Hulk. Kamala Khan, and Sam Alexander. I still think that is going to be a team that is going to have some power, either in the MCU in movies or in on Disney Plus on TV shows. Now is the time to buy these things. Don't be the person who's buying Ultimate Fallout 4 when it's $1,400.
Yeah,
Be the
don't.
guy who buys them out of the bins, like I got the second prints for $6 to $8 a piece. Buy them now while they're not the focus of people's attention, because once that announcement happens, it will go from a $10 book on Monday and the announcements on Tuesday, it'll be a $70-$100 book on Wednesday. That's just the way the market works right now.
Can I point another one out that I think
Sure.
people are really sleeping on and is way undervalued? And that is Amazing Fantasy 15, the first appearance of Amadeus Cho. Amazing Fantasy.
You had me there for a minute.
Yeah. Amazing Fantasy 15 is way undervalued. Nobody's paying top dollar for that. No, there was another series called Amazing Fantasy that was kind of like a Marvel premiere, Marvel Spotlight tryout book. And they tried all sorts of different concepts, and no big winners. But the last issue, 15, strangely enough, I believe that's the last issue, was the first appearance of Amadeus Cho. And it's this little, I think an 8-10 page story in the back of this thing. And the writer, Greg Pak, I believe, who it was, kind of fell in love with this character and brought him into the Incredible Hercules series as Herc's sidekick. And this was well before Amadeus Cho became the totally awesome Hulk and a member of the Champions. And so you've got all these books, the .1 books with Kamala Khan, the .1 with the Nova. But I think Amadeus Cho really gets slept on. It just is going to take the right book, the right movie announcement, whatever it is, because that Amazing Fantasy book was just the lowest selling Marvel title for the entire run, just about. I mean, it was just like squeaking by with these pitiful orders. So it's a double-sized book, that last issue. So it's a tougher book to get a 9.8. I had a 9.8. I sold it a couple years ago. I kind of wish I held on to it. But it's a tough book to get a 9.8, and there's just not a lot of them out there.
Yeah, I hate to say this because this is still a book I'm chasing. That same book, Amazing Fantasy 15, there is a Turkish variant of that book that has, instead of Spidey on the cover, it's got Spider-Gwen holding a Miles Morales in that classic pose. It is a Turkish version of the book, and I am hunting that. And please let me get my copy first because there's only 250 printed of that particular book. So
all you need to do right now, book a flight to Turkey.
That might be a little extreme.
Go on.
I got outbid. I was bidding on a copy of this book, and it went over my budget, which went over $500, I believe.
Wow.
For this book. But no, it's Amadeus Cho. I agree with you completely. If you want to reboot the Hulk for a younger crowd, it's perfect. It is a perfect way of doing that. It's an established way of doing that. So yeah, I think this whole concept of this Champions team and all these younger Marvel characters, really is something that you can get in on the ground floor. And frankly, right now it's not a huge investment. You spend $10 on a Raw, maybe $50 on a Raw. What I have is $100 investment pack. It's maybe something I start doing. You get one Sam Alexander's first appearance, you get one Kamala Khan's first appearance, and then you get Viv Vision's first appearance in Vision #1. Viv Vision is another character in Champions, and I think she's going to be maybe young in the upcoming Vision Scarlet Witch movie or TV show, but she's going to be entering into the MCU in a form, and we may see things from her, and that book is still in a reasonable $20-$30 for that book. So for $100 you can get all three, put them in a long your long box in the back, and just wait and see what happens. I think it's a good investment and could pay off in spades.
That's great. Well, now you guys have your marching orders. You got plenty of things to buy this week. You have no excuse for not buying anything unless you're broke. But then you know,
there doesn't seem to be a lot of broke people in comic books right now. I mean, for all this money going around for UF4s and Edge of Spider-Verse, I'm impressed that we as a hobby keep finding money to raise the value of these comics.
And do it. Richard and I both do. We're very open about it. We sell other books to finance the books we really want. I have no great affection for Spider-Gwen. God bless her. You better believe I'm going to flip that book and buy another Patsy and Heidi annual. Is that smart? Debatable, but buy what you love and you're always going to be happy. Make sure, no better words to leave fans with that, right? Buy what you love. Right. And hey, with that, we're out of here. Please make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Bronze and Modern Gods. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit subscribe, hit like. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platforms, please give us a rate and review. By the way, we saw all the new reviews you guys gave us last week on Apple Podcasts and all the other platforms. You don't know how happy that made us. That really made our week. So don't think we didn't see that. Visit us at bronzeandmoderngods.com. Hit contact, shoot us an email. We love hearing from you. We'd love to talk about more topics you guys want to hear about. And until next week, I'm John.
And I'm Richard.
And we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Stay safe.